Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm excited to see you guys. I think it's been like, shoot, I think it was the last town hall, Giancarlo, since I've been on the web,
Yeah,
right? It's been a while. I
that's
think we
correct.
were all done with like so many webinars, and we had webinar overload that it's kind of nice to come back and take a break. But now I'm kind of excited to be back on it. So, how are you doing today, Giancarlo?
Very good, very good. Thanks, JB, for asking. That's been a very nice few days here in California, and
Yeah,
I'm excited to have this new webinar
yeah.
town hall
I
with you.
I have to say, it seems like both California and Utah have been pretty nice weather lately, right? We had all this
Oh, yeah.
rain, we had all this snow from the winter time.
A lot, a lot. I mean, this winter was impressive. I mean, a quantity of water here in California has not been seen like this for 100 years. So
Yeah, I
well
feel like,
deserved. Well
yeah,
deserved.
I'm feeling bad for our friends to the north though, because it seems like Canada
Yeah.
like didn't get any of the moisture, and they now they're dealing with fires, and all that smoke is over New York and the East Coast. So, hearts are with them, and
Yeah.
hopefully all goes
Yeah.
well.
I
So,
saw some picture from New York City, and it remembered me when I was in San Francisco 3 years ago, 4 years
yeah,
ago. Yeah, it was all
yeah,
red and similar.
it is. It's bad. It's
Very bad,
bad.
very bad, very bad.
Well, we're still waiting for a few more people to join in. I see numbers are still climbing. Giancarlo, I wanted to do something different today. This whole notion of large language models, right? OpenAI, ChatGPT. I thought I would just randomly ask ChatGPT a question here and see what it got. In fact, what I did is I said, hey, give me a haiku about MSPs, okay? And so here's what it said. All right, you're familiar with haikus. I love haikus, right? But it says, MSPs support tech guardians day and night, seamless solutions. I mean, genius, genius. What do you think of that?
No, that's great, JB. No, it's impressive the way it can, organize thought somehow, no?
Oh yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
the
I've I've
information from there.
I've
Yeah.
been fascinated by just the amount of exposure that AI has gotten and how rapidly it's changed in the last
Oh
couple of years.
yeah,
I know
yeah.
that
I mean,
you and I both have looked at using this even with some of the custom scripts and writing JavaScript. And I mean, we'll probably show some
impressive.
examples today where we use that. So I went a little bit further too, and I said, hey, tell me a joke about commercial integrators. And I thought this was kind of funny. It says, why did the commercial integrator bring a ladder to the job? Well, it's because they wanted to reach new heights in audiovisual excellence. Yeah. Little lame-o joke, but pretty funny. Yeah. So
It's a fun one.
yeah, it looks like our numbers are starting to settle down, Giancarlo. So let me say welcome to our town hall. I know we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to some of the things that we've released. And Giancarlo, you and I went over this over the last couple of days, and we have summarized it. Do you want to move to the next slide, Giancarlo?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. So I've kind of taken and distilled what I think were some of the bigger and more important topics into about 5 different things. But of course, we want to make sure we spend some time on some of the next things that we're focusing on as well. You guys know that we release monthly newsletters. Kudos to our marketing team for doing that. Kudos to our amazing development team as well when it comes to that. But we'll talk about over the last quarter, what we've done with respect to custom filters, which was kind of the start of this process, and how we've now migrated that into what we consider to be dynamic monitoring. And Giancarlo will do an awesome demonstration there. We'll speak to why that's beneficial. We'll talk about a lot of the OS monitoring improvements that we've made. I think that when you realize what we've done here with these things, we can speak to why it's beneficial not only to service providers, but also commercial integrators, as they try to reach new heights, as ChatGPT said for us. We're going to talk a little bit more also, of course, about the core competency of what we do, right? How we've changed some of the network device and infrastructure solutions that we provide. And then I think we'll dive, we kind of left this towards the end, but we'll talk about how we've gotten into adding more pre-configured templates for SNMP. We can even speak to some of the advancements we've made on SNMP and what we can do to more rapidly release new templates. And then we'll get into custom scripts and how that's changing the game for you guys. And then of course, we'll look a little bit into the next quarter as well. Any other things you think we need to add there, Giancarlo? We move into it?
No, I mean, something that we usually mention, we will have a question and answer section at the end. Feel free to write your question in the chat. Yeah, we are here also to talk to you guys and listen to your voice.
Yep. And Michael absolutely wanted us to get started, so we better move in on that. Speaking of his questions, he didn't like my jokes about ChatGPT, I guess. So custom filters, dynamic monitoring, right? Visibility of devices and systems that you want to see when you see it. I mean, that's essentially the theme, right? We've made several improvements in this area. A lot of it has been underneath and in the infrastructure, improving the way the database grabs information, but also really extending the support. We had some limitations in our tables before, but now we've extended that from what was a 300 device limit to beyond 3,000 devices as needed. So as you're looking across all your sites, right, from a multi-tenant perspective, being able to bring in, just thousands of devices and filter on those as appropriate. But we've also added some capabilities as well when it comes to filtering, which Giancarlo, I definitely, by all means, if you want to go in and show it, but being
Absolutely.
able to filter on specific values, whether it's by manufacturer, by device type, by certain fields as needed, but then also showing that data through things like uptime and whatnot. Have at it, Giancarlo.
Yeah, very good, JP. Yeah, that's important. The value that offered by what we call custom filter, which is basically, I mean, we always offer the filtering capability into our inventory tab. Now, what we have added is the capability of saving whatever you filter. Let me provide you with an example on our friend. Most of you probably already know him, is Bobby. And I want to search for where Bobby's MacBook is currently attached, or let's say where it is connected. Now, don't get me wrong, when you see two Bobby MacBook, it's just because I have two Domotz agents running on the same network, two different names on the site, but basically the same physical network. So I filter by the name that contains Bobby and model MacBook, and the status should be online. What I can do now is save as a custom filter. I say it's Bob in the office. Bobby's office. This gives me an indication where Bob is connected. Now, if he moves his MacBook in his own home, where we have another agent there, it will basically disappear from this list and it will appear in the in his network. Just to give you an example. So now this filter is saved, and you can recall the filter directly from the drop-down list. So I have a few other filters that I said here for testing purposes, but this is the one that I just created. Now, as I was mentioning, if Bobby change the network, let's say I do a small trick here. Instead of making Bobby go home now, I just name my MacBook, and instead of calling it Giancarlo, I call it Bobby. Now, what happens is that if I go and I refresh the view, my new MacBook that I have named Bobby basically appears in the same list. And this is the first part of what has been introduced with the custom filter. Probably the most important thing, having released this custom filter, is the fact that we can use now the custom filter in the monitoring dashboard, and specifically in the monitoring table that we create in this dashboard. Let me provide you an example. I want basically check the connectivity status. Let's include the uptime, because this is also something new I want to show. And we want to basically and dynamically change this list and only includes all the Bobby's MacBook wherever they're stored, regardless if it's already existing device, if it's a new one, online, or they will be discovering the new networks that we show. And so this is basically a dynamic table, which means that if for example, there will be a new site and Bobby will move in that new site, it will automatically show in this table. So that's why we call it the dynamic table. Just to give an example, let me roll back the name of this device, which is basically my MacBook at home, and I name it back to Giancarlo. Yeah, what happens here is that once it refresh the view, let me just change and refresh. Oh, it probably needs to reload this one. Sorry for that. Yeah, it disappeared from here, but yeah, and disappear from here. So basically, that's the advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the key thing about this and what I love so much is that now you can start to take active filters, right? And start to build these tables such that if you want to see when devices or people even, right, move from one site to others, or you want to see when new devices show up in tables based off of specific criteria, right, you can do that. That was one thing that you didn't have before. But now these tables are very proactive. So even if you wanted to filter on specific types of devices showing up on the network and you want to check the status, whether they're online or offline, you don't have to redo the page, right? You don't have to redo the table, right? It's now dynamic for you. So very good, very good.
Yeah.
Jim, you mentioned the uptime. Did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, let's speak about the uptime. I want to also mention about the, let's say, improvements in the number of devices that we included there. As a matter of fact, let me show you now my view of, this is our customer support account where we have shared access to you guys that provide us with access to your network for support purposes. And what I want to show you, this is a custom filter I saved as a Cisco network appliances, all the network appliances. There are probably 2,500 devices. And now all of these 2,500 devices are basically available in one single table. It will take a little bit. It's 2,500 devices or more, and with all the information there to be retrieved. But basically, this is a huge list of devices that it's dynamic, which means that if tomorrow a new support ticket arrives and we need to access to the Cisco device, it will appear here.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not my use case because, I mean, as I said, we access to.
What it does show is the extensibility and scalability there, Giancarlo.
Correct. Very, very good point, GB. Now, you talk about the uptime. That's a very good point, GB. I have added the uptime columns in both these new tables that I show, and there is the MacBook Pro from Bobby's, and what we have added is a couple of columns, the uptime percentage in the last 24 hours, and the uptime percentage in the last 7 days. Similarly, I mean, this is a mobile, so the uptime is very low in your case, no GB. What we are going to add is also a third column, which will be the uptime in the last 30 days, and few more details about how we calculate the uptime. Imagine that if the agent goes offline on his own, we don't have the statistic of the end device, so that will be taken into consideration.
Yep. Yeah. From my perspective, whether you're a service provider or commercial integrator, this is just a better way of reporting on your service level agreements that you're putting in place with your customers. So this is a way in which you can validate that the systems you're putting in place are there, and we're going to continue to improve on that. So
yeah, worth to mention that all those data you can export in a CSV file, and you can use in your own report, or you can use the API to retrieve this information directly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on to the OS monitoring changes and things that we've done there, Giancarlo. You know, from my perspective, you know, Domotz is absolutely a network monitoring solution, but what we see is that more and more servers and systems that are out there are becoming a critical part of that infrastructure and the systems that you guys are deploying and monitoring. Whether it's running Windows, whether it's running Linux, right, or some other variant, right, understanding what's going on in that system is really, really critical. For a lot of the improvements that we made, we're going to focus on Windows, because we even see with things like Zoom rooms and team rooms, right, they're running on Windows platforms. Giancarlo, please speak to all these improvements.
So absolutely, just to make life easier, we have so far aggregated all the pieces of the way we can monitor Windows machine, Windows servers, endpoints in one blog page. Because as JB was mentioning, we monitor these endpoints, let's say, at least in two ways. One we called OS monitoring. Basically, through the mean of WinRM or SSH, Domotz automatically try to extract some basic information from the endpoint, like operating system, specific version, memory utilization, volume, and so on. And we have discussed about the OS monitoring back in the past multiple times. But however, we have started adding more and more what we call custom script into the Domotz in the Domotz framework. And just as a reminder, custom scripts are basically here, where, let me see if I have any Windows. Yeah, I have a Windows update checker. It's a simple script. In this case, probably to use PowerShell or WMI commands to extract, in this case, the information about what updates are available for the Windows machine. So to recap, we have created a blog post and we listed some of the most useful scripts and access to the scripts that can be used to extract information from the Windows machine. I have probably here a list how to monitor Windows Active Directory privileges, how to monitor CPU usage on the endpoint, how to check if a host is reachable or not from a Windows endpoint, how to check the group policies that have been configured into the Windows machine, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Carlo, we had a question come up that I want to point out. The question was, are we trying to become an RMM, right? And I have a visceral reaction to that, because we're definitely not looking to replace any RMM capabilities, right? What we are doing is giving you the power to monitor systems on the network and drive alerts on things that could be affecting your network infrastructure. We ultimately are a network management solution. We believe that traditional RMMs do a very good job of understanding how to handle patch management, do remote connectivity into those systems, and that's where they go. All of these things that Giancarlo is talking about are giving you capabilities to check on the status of these systems that are deployed in your infrastructure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, JP. That's exactly our aim. We want to give as much visibility as possible into all the system, but we are not going, or it's not our, let's say, our strategic view to replace a patch management system. It's not what we want to do. It's a visibility.
Right. We had another comment that came in, Giancarlo, too, while you're transitioning there, that I'd point out. Everything that we're showing you right now are things that have been made available over the last 3 months. So we'll talk a little bit about on our roadmap of where we're going, but that'll be at the end of this. So I just wanted to make sure we address that too.
Correct. So still speaking about these scripts and the way we are able to extract information out of the Windows machine and so on. One limitation we had until 3 months ago, exactly, was that in order to access every single Windows machine, we need to have the credential of every single machine. So to access it through WMI via WinRM as a protocol, we have to have every single machine with its own user. But now we are able to connect to the device and use Active Directory credential. so that if you have a group policies defined, you can have one single account spread across all the Windows machine, and with a couple of clicks, you unlock all the machine together. That's, I believe, it's super helpful and goes in the way Domotz can scale your business the most. Let me switch back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, that's the unlocking via interactive directory. JP, do you want to talk a little bit about the network device and infrastructure improvements that
I do. I think we've made a lot of things, and I've summarized. I mean, this has been across several months, and I've summarized some of what I thought were the bigger topics, Giancarlo, that our users could really take advantage of. One thing that I was most excited about at the beginning here was the alerting stuff that we've done, the triggering on change capabilities. From my perspective, you can kind of see it in this that image there, but whenever before, right, you could look at a version number and you could see if that version was greater than X, or if it was less than X, then do an alert. But now what you can do with the variables within the systems is you could say, if this variable changed, if this sensor changed, give me an alert, and then I can go look at it. So that way you don't have to update the versions. And I think that was just a great improvement. It's a minor improvement, but it's actually a very, very useful improvement. Did you have any wanted to demo on that?
Exactly. No, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to show, I have like a dashboard where I collect firmware version from different devices like Synology NAS, the WatchGuard firewall, or the Dell iDRAC servers that we have. And yeah, this alert actually was exactly configured as a change. So there is a version of the SysA software version, SysB software version on the WatchGuard firewall. I can put an alert so that I can be notified if there is a change, regardless if it changed from A to B or from B to C. In the past, you had to put an alert, like you said, JP, if value is different from A, send me an alert. But as soon as it changed, then you need to change the alert mechanism or the trigger mechanism. So this is very, very powerful in this case.
It's probably worth pointing out, Giancarlo, and I know we've said this before, but we're continuing to evolve how we handle alerting and what we're doing in that. And there's several different ways to set up alerts, whether you're in these tables, whether you're in the inventory dashboard, whether you're in the SNMP systems in the alerts per devices. We're continuing to improve that and make it easier for you to understand which alerts are available and how all those get set. So the next thing, Giancarlo, was around some of the backup configuration things that we're doing. You guys have added support, especially, I believe it's been on like the Fortinet systems as well as WatchGuard, maybe some others, right?
That's correct. So in the WatchGuard and FortiGate firewall, what we have here is we used to have the configuration management, so the backup of the configuration file based on a console, basically Telnet or SSH connection to the end device, in this case a WatchGuard. Now what we have is basically we can connect to the WatchGuard and FortiGate via FTTP, which means that the configuration file can be much bigger. The configuration file that we can store is much bigger, because issue was with the console Telnet or SSH, it took too long to retrieve the entire configuration file, and basically the process just time out. So you can now download. I don't know if I can access the file now and show the file, but this is a huge file. Let me see if I can share this one. Yeah, this configuration file for my WatchGuard is huge. It's just a lab, so
wow,
it's just our lab. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so being able to back those things up now, right, is just more value add to you guys, right?
Correct.
This next one, right? This is one that I think is it's kind of a minor point, but when people need it, they really appreciate what we did here. So from an account management perspective, a lot of you probably realize that there's really three types of users within Domotz. There's the team master, who is the super admin. There are team members, and then there are field operators. One of the things that we've had requests for and we've now implemented is the ability for team members to act as team masters. The reason that this is important is because it's the team master that has access to billing. It's the team master that has access to adding team members and field operators. So in certain situations, you may be in a company where, you know, the owner of the company wants to be the team master, but they want to give capabilities to you know, some of their team members or their management team so that they can deal with billing or deal with team members. You now can do that. The way we handle that is it happens on our back end, right? And we have to go through a permissioning and approval process. But if you email our support team, we can enable that. Is there anything you wanted to say or add to that, Giancarlo?
No, you're perfectly right. No, it's so far until like 2 months ago, we only had the capability of having one single admin role. Now, the admin role is the one, as you mentioned, manage a team, manage the billing, manage some global configuration like the API access, or may I think about that. Yeah, those are basically the three things, major things that the admin role has. And now we have offered this capability of having multiple team members sharing the admin role.
Yeah, yeah, which I think is great. So
just contact our support team to have that enabled. Yeah.
The last thing on this particular thing that I thought was important is we're seeing more and more people take advantage of our pre-configured templates, taking advantage of the scripts. And with that, it means that they're adding more and more sensors to systems to be able to monitor the infrastructure. Well, one of the challenges we are running into were the limits on the sensors that we have within these systems. So we've always had this notion of being able to add booster packs if you needed more sensors or you needed to monitor sensors more often. Now you can actually stack booster packs. So you can, I think we have up to 5 booster packs per agent that you can put on there if you need to manage large networks or lots of systems, or you need to pull systems more often. So that's just something that we've added there as well.
Very good. GB, can I interrupt a little bit the flow? I have a question from Chris Conlon about when are we going to, let's say, stop the access to the Windows, sorry, the web interface of the Domotz box or the Domotz agent in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about that yesterday, no, GB? We say, okay, let's not include that one because probably we discussed previous town hall, but yeah, we were probably wrong. No, GB, we probably didn't discuss. Anyway, short story is that we have added like 3 months ago, and probably it was between the town hall and not, the capability of stopping access to the local web interface. So if you go into the agent types and agent configuration and customer configuration, here is where you have the local agent local web interface. This is my local agent at home, and so basically if I stop the access, this is my agent. If I try to reload again, it will basically just not load anymore. And this is on my local network. So yeah, absolutely. So we introduced this concept a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. I remember exactly when.
I'm glad you, yeah, we did talk about that, Giancarlo. And so thank you, Chris, for asking that question. So next area, Giancarlo, I think we get into some of the sensors, right? Or the templates and the scripts, right? So
yeah,
we bundled these two kind of items into one, but there's a lot we can show here. First of all, you know, we've added SNMP templates to bring out more of the data from these systems. You know, here we're focusing a lot on the network infrastructure devices like our firewalls, you know, servers that are out there. We showed how we're doing more with Windows. We're doing the same thing with a lot of Linux VM systems as well. So we're continuing to add to that. We did have a question kind of along these same lines, Giancarlo, which is, you know, Vince is asking about makes and models for things like configuration backups and how we're handling that. There is a roadmap for that. I would encourage you guys to check out our community. So if you go to community.domotz.com, if I remember correctly, Giancarlo, there's a list of makes and models that we have active drivers for that we keep up to date, but what's that?
Yeah, I was going to check if I have that very on my hand and share the
Page. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go on the help, yeah, I'm sharing now. So if you go on the
oh, we put it in it. We've migrated it to help.domotz.
Yeah, it is. It's now on the help center. So if you go on any one of these and check for the configuration management.
I'm going to say kudos to our marketing team because they have been running in the background and making sure that our communities are updated. These help.domotz pages, our onboarding guides, those are all getting updated continuously. So
yeah. So here you have all the configuration management, all the version. There is a specific page where we list all of them. So we will send that specifically page via email as well.
Yep. Well, going back, so we're continuing to make updates to these SNMP templates. And Giancarlo, I didn't know if you wanted to show anything, but another thing.
I have something, yeah. I have something to show.
If you want to show that now, go ahead. And then we can talk about the custom scripts. And we've got a good question that's going to lead into a roadmap item anyway.
Very good. Yeah, so let me go here. And so the first one is the WatchGuard firewall. This is something that we have in our lab. So glad to show that one. If I go to the inventory, I was actually on the WatchGuard before, but basically through the SNMP, we have added a couple of. It's probably even better to see from here to the. Oh yeah, I have here. Okay. Sorry, I'm jumping from one to the other. I can't remember where I put the pre-configured template. So we have added for the WatchGuard the basic monitoring, what we called a firewall general monitoring, like the information I was showing you before, like the software version, CPU utilization, memory usage, and so on, plus cluster monitoring information and some information about the policies table that we have. So currently active connections, the tunnels rate, so basically the rate of traffic there, and and the traffic in bit per second. Similarly, last week probably we have also added pre-configured for the Sophos firewall. I don't have a Sophos in my lab now, but I can show from the user guide some screenshot of the Sophos information that we extract. Again, general information like appliance key, device model, firmware versions, north, and so on. You can see here this is an installation where I have the Sophos firewall, multiple sites, so every single site has a different, sometimes different model, but we are able to extract the information about memory usage, disk usage, all of them, plus the firewall policies, which is again very important because we extract for every single policy the type of the connection and the active tunnel count. So you can put now alerts also on the tunnel count.
That's actually what I was going to say, Giancarlo, is the ability to take all of these pre-configured sensors, right, and then generate alerts on the things you care about, right? To me, like the more powerful aspect here, that before it was really difficult to get in and do that. You had to go configure an OID, or you had to go look at something very specific. Now we have enabled it just to essentially right click and set a value. So
correct.
Let's.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the last one I want to cover was the IDRAC one, which is also very relevant.
Sure,
yeah, and on the IDRAC, I created a dashboard just to show better the information here. Again, we have general information like the IDRAC version, the system service, system status, storage status, power status, LCD, but also for every single component, the status of the power unit, redundancy, temperature, and so on. So, and again, for this, you can put an alert. I probably put an alert here if something, or no, it is an agent from, yeah, from my colleague, so they put an alert there.
Yeah, good.
Regarding the other things that we probably list, like the custom script. You want to talk about the custom script, GB?
Yeah. Scripts. We actually have a few questions on that anyway. The scripts are something that we, over the last year, right, have continued to improve. These are essentially Java-based scripts, and Giancarlo, I'd invite you to bring up a example of some scripts. So in fact, the image that's shown there on the screen is a script that my colleagues helped write here, where we're looking at things like an indoor air quality sensor, right? And we're extracting data in this particular script. What we're actually doing is the device is sitting on our network. It's sending data up to the cloud, right, to its own cloud. And we're actually extracting data from their cloud through these scripts and showing it about that device. So not only are we showing the device status itself, right, and how it's connected to the network, but we're also able to show details about that. This happens to be a battery-powered device, so we're showing the battery level. We can set alerts on that. We are looking at the various air quality, temperature, things like that coming from that device there. We can do the same thing when it comes to checking services running on systems. We can, in fact, the iPerf results, right? That script is pretty darn cool because we can run through these custom scripts, performance testings from one machine to another, right? And then set alerts based on those performance levels. We can do things like monitoring cloud services, cloud systems. We've had things like monitoring Zoom rooms, monitoring Teams, making sure that their infrastructure is set up. Last time we showed us monitoring Giancarlo's Tesla wall charger, right? But we're continuing to improve these things. One of the questions that we got here, Giancarlo, was around Cisco's unified communication systems. And I will tell you that we don't have, we have not written a driver for that, but I would tell you that especially with Cisco and the amount of APIs as well as SNMP and how they use that, it would actually be very straightforward to pull data from their systems and put it into drivers. Most of the scripts that I've seen where our team has written scripts, they're anywhere from 50 lines of code to 150. They're really not massive unless we get into a much more detailed script. We also had another question, Giancarlo, around automation of these systems. Do we have the ability to, see a value, right, which can trigger events? And the answer to that is yes, right? These scripts are meant to help you with automations of these things. If you want to do something as simple as, when I see a device go down, issue a power cycle, you can do that. You can do that through these types of scripts. What would you like to show, Giancarlo?
No, perfectly. No, you're perfectly right in saying that, yeah, you can act on the, use the script also for active purpose, and basically trigger actions on the end device. As a matter of fact, part of the script is what we call custom action. I don't know. Just stupid example. You don't want to have like a volume of television going very high, and you can put a trigger if the volume above 70%, then mute the television or something like that. Something feasible, something that somebody's already doing with Domotz.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, great example in like a digital signage space, right? Being able to control and make sure things are working there. Yep.
Yep. Very good. I was going to show the other two. The iPerf. Actually, I don't have an access there, but I can share where the information can be collected. So if you go on the Domotz website, in the integration tab, we are starting collecting all these scripts, and the iPerf, for instance, is available here. So you will get some initial information on what the script is and how to use the script there. Similarly, the integration with the Amazon Web Services, AWS, we use extensively AWS. We know the environment. We do monitor AWS. Of course, you can imagine that we as a monitoring company, we need to monitor our own infrastructure. We extensively use this kind of API to extract information out of our AWS environment. We can extract information about the database when it's saturating, or the number of connections is very high, or the CPU is very high. So all this kind of information are now available through Domotz.
It's always good to eat your own dog food. So yeah.
And of course, you mentioned the third one, which is the IoT devices monitoring extensive. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much you can do with respect to that. Again, I look at a lot of what we're doing. We talked about the OS monitoring systems, being able to monitor devices within the network. I mean, from a Domotz point of view, these are all ways in which you can not only monitor the network infrastructure, right? Of course, we do that really well, right? The routers, the firewalls, the access points, but it's really monitoring those systems and devices that are connected to that infrastructure that your customers rely on a daily basis to make sure that their business can run effectively. That's what we're helping you do more efficiently. And I think it just shows how we're continuing to make Domotz an extremely powerful tool while still being easy to use.
Yeah.
Speaking of ease of use, Giancarlo, I want to get into what we're doing over the next quarter. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk a lot about these scripts. We talk a lot about these pre-configured templates. One of the things I'm super excited about is rather than having you go to GitHub, rather than having you, go to a web page, we're going to bring these scripts into the user interface. You'll be able to search across all the scripts that are made available to you. You'll be able to search across any scripts that you've customized and easily deploy those scripts to the systems that you're there. Giancarlo, you want to give an overview of what we're doing and how we're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just an example, a starting example. As you mentioned, this is coming very soon. So by the end of June, beginning of July, we have all the custom script or the script, integration script that we have developed or somebody of you has developed, we have helped in the development or refining the development. And together we have agreed to share to the community. So basically we are collecting all these scripts. At the moment, as I was showing you before, you can access to this script from the website. There's an overview of what the script look like and access to the GitHub repository where you can copy the script, customize on your own and put in your own environment to use on your own devices. What we are going to do here is basically collect all this bunch of scripts, structure those scripts with tagging and category and so on, and give access to the script directly from the web GUI of Domotz, so from the web app. As you can see here, basically, when you will access to the automation script section, you will have the entire list of all the scripts that we make public. You can select them, and you can select them, customize eventually, and apply on your own environment to your own devices. So making access to this volume of integration that we are developing and making it easier for you to deploy on your own infrastructure is our, let's say, target. It's what we are aiming to do.
And by the way, no, a question came in around this, which I think is fairly relevant. So we're building out this infrastructure like Giancarlo is showing, so that way, as we continue to deploy these scripts, whether they are considered to be pre-configured templates or whether they're meant to be scripts that you can customize for your environment, we're going to be releasing that into this community. We are going to also encourage, right, and we are going to enable users to really build out a complete community of scripts. We've seen this from other services, and it's done really, really well. A lot of open source communities have enabled that. And we're going to do something very, very similar, right? We're going to figure out with this process being put in place, how do we verify, validate that these scripts are good and usable? How can we put rating systems on these scripts so that way people can rate them to see whether they're usable or not? But then we want to make that available to the community. So I do expect that this is going to broaden out even larger over the next 2 quarters, to where you'll be able to take scripts from the community and make use of them. You can do that actually today through things like GitHub, but it's not as easy to use, right? So we're going to make that simple. So I thought that was a really good question there. So
I completely agree to you.
Giancarlo, there's another, and I know we don't have a slide on this, but there was a question that came up around permissioning. Actually, right? I think when we were talking about giving team members some of the team master permissions, if you will, there was a question that came up around, you know, how I'm going to say it this way: how much further are we going with this? Right. And I know that it is in our roadmap to continue to improve how we handle permissioning with users. One of the requests that we have had in the past, and I think this is an important one, is something similar to like a read-only type of user. Field operators today have full control of the agents that they're given permission to, but we often see requests where a service provider wants to be able to give their customer visibility into the system, but not be able to connect, not be able to change, not be able to reconfigure systems, not be able to rename the devices, right? Because there's probably a nomenclature that is getting utilized by the service provider. We see that as a valuable user type as well. And I know that's on our roadmap as well.
Absolutely. We have been asked multiple times. The power of the monitoring dashboard is huge, especially now that you have the possibility of dynamically add devices into the tables and sensors to the table. Yeah, I showed the devices, but basically the same concept is also for the sensors. So let's imagine you want to monitor the ink level of all the printers of our Domotz office in Draper. I can create a table just for that. If tomorrow my colleague Bobby brings a new printer in the office, it will automatically show up in that table with all the ink levels. So that's very powerful. So a lot of time we have been asked to give access to those monitoring tables to a specific user, just read only, as we mentioned. That's probably something that we will realize very, very soon. So,
yeah, it's good. It's good. I know that a lot of good requests on that. Giancarlo, we had another request here, or question, I should say, coming in about, you know, when we'll be able to monitor and back up things like Cisco firewalls, right? Rocky systems, right? And is that on the roadmap? You know, my answer is it on the roadmap? Yes, of course. Where is it on the priority is, of course, the question that we have to answer. Before you answer that, Giancarlo, I want to point out that we have said this for years, and I'm going to say it again. If there are systems that you guys use in your business that you need us to be developing drivers towards, we need to hear from you. Right? So please email support@domotz.com, and we will put that into our feature request list. We prioritize these things based off of the number of requests that we get. We've talked about this before. We also have this notion of sponsorship. I mean, if there's something that you need that needs to be prioritized, you can sponsor the development of that driver, and we also can get it done that way. When it comes to kind of the more detailed things like configuration backups, which is really what was being asked here, or when it comes to things like integrating PoE control of managed switches, those are usually things that we have to do within our infrastructure. But I will tell you that the custom scripts that we've created provide you with a lot of power as well. It may not be the ideal integration, but if you need something quickly done, custom scripts are a great way to do that as well. What was your thoughts on roadmap items or
yeah, no, you told that. Yeah, you mentioned that very, very in a proper way, JP. You know, some of this, so all this the concept of this JavaScript that we can create makes the development much faster on our side. So if something is required as a script, we can definitely help and prioritize. When it goes to something that is integrated into Domotz, like the configuration management of a new firewall, that's a different monster, let's say, from a development point of view. We need to put that in the roadmap and prioritize. Now, specifically for the Cisco Meraki, we have not looked yet into that because, I mean, in order to use Meraki, you need to have cloud infrastructure anyway. So their cloud service, you need to use that. I mean, you cannot avoid that. And they already back up the configuration there in the Meraki cloud. Yeah, it's good to have just one single pair of glasses and use Domotz for all your site. But when it goes to the backup part, I mean, at least you have a version there.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
On the other hand, if you have a firewall which doesn't have their own cloud, imagine a WatchGuard firewall. It's very, very important you start doing the backup.
Yeah.
Similar with the FortiGate when it's local, or all the other firewall and even switches that we do manage to integrate from the configuration management point of view, which means config backup, versioning, control of the configuration files. Yeah.
It's funny, we got a comment from Sean about scripts, right? So going into this whole community world, right? He's pointing out that scripts must be verified and vetted, right? I 100% agree, right? You should never be, that's one of the challenges with open source communities, right? Is you need to make sure that the systems that are being put in place are vetted and verified. And we're looking at how we can effectively do that in this before we release that. So I appreciate that. Let's see, Giancarlo, there's several questions coming in, which I fully appreciate. Let me see which are a good one here. It says from Rob, is there a way to have devices report more accurately what the device is on the auto discovery? I have some switches that are reporting as printers, etc. Yeah, that's something that I know our team is continuously improving on. In fact, just to speak a little bit about how Domotz has grown over the last couple of years, and then we can answer this question on what we're doing, right? We, just so everybody knows, right, we've grown to about 70 employees now. We're continuing to grow. A lot of that investment continues to be in the engineering side of things, so that we can continue to create great products for you guys and add new features. One of the things that we have done, and Giancarlo, I know you've been very instrumental in helping create this, is build out kind of what we consider to be a network infrastructure team that is looking at things like this, right? How is it that we can continue to improve? Because as you all know, right, more and more devices are showing up on the web, and with that, right, our databases continue to grow, and making sure that we accurately discover and classify devices is important to us. It's one of the things that we do, we think, quite well. The fact that we discover devices based off of MAC addresses, and then we try to enrich that data as best as possible, we're doing. We have seen areas where when we classify a device, you know, the icon or the type may not be what we expect, but we're putting processes in place to continuously improve that and putting algorithms inside so that when we see corrections being made, that we try to correct that on the back end. Giancarlo, can you speak to what the team is doing with respect to some of the higher layer protocols and stuff to help improvements too?
Yeah, you're right, GB. So there is a dedicated team specifically for that kind of activity to improve the recognition. I mean, we started 5 years ago with just MAC address, throwing the MAC address in a database and returning the vendor. We have added with the time the model, type, and querying external databases, starting from the information that we collect on the platform. But we also added the protocol, more protocol to the collection algorithm. No, we collect UPnP data, we collect NetBIOS data, Bonjour data, SNMP data. Sometimes the raw data are misleading, which means that if you have, just throw an example, if they have a network with devices switching IP addresses, we might think, or the agent might think that it's interrogating a printer. It's actually interrogating a switch because they swap IP addresses, and something like this might happen. And in that case, there might be a confusion in the recognition of the device at the end of the flow. We are optimizing that part as well. So we are also trying to fix that work. But just to give numbers, like when we start the recognition, well, in terms of percentage, how many unknown devices were discovered on the network? There were like 10% of known devices on network 5 years ago. Now we are about 85% of known devices when we discover new network. So
yeah,
made
a lot of good improvements there, right? So, and we're continuing to do that. That's one of the areas we think we still differentiate. Along these same lines, so there was one question about roadmaps. Do we have a roadmap publicly available? The answer is no. Okay, we don't make that public, and in general, as a product manager, right, we try to hold some of that close to our chest. But that being said, if you have specific questions about things, we are more than happy to talk to them about you and where we vision those in our priorities. There was another question that came in here, Giancarlo, which it's actually something that I believe is available today through our APIs, but it's around, do we have a way of, kind of putting in an IP address or MAC address to be monitored, even though that device may currently be offline? Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, you mean if it's currently offline, but you want to add that IP address? Right. Yes, through the API, it is possible to import that device. But don't get me wrong, though, if the device is physical online and Domotz does not discover that device, there is an issue. Right. If you want to import the device or not, there's an issue with Domotz, which better to analyze the issue rather than force the system, I want to add this device. So
I think what they're doing is they're probably seeing that, they know they have specific devices that will be online but aren't there yet.
Okay.
They want to monitor
if that is the case, online,
right, when it's plugged in and stuff, and it's probably utilizing static IPs or things of that nature.
Yeah, in that case, with that use case in mind, that's perfectly feasible with the API. Absolutely. There is also a web page on our help center that shows how to monitor without having the scanning capability online. No, you can start with Domotz agent, no scan at all, and then you force the system to tell, okay, these are the IP addresses that I want to monitor.
Yeah.
It's feasible through the API.
Giancarlo, we did get a question about tags, right? Tagging of data. So as you know, right, within a device, we can kind of apply an important tag to it. And this gets to, I think, some of the API discussions that we can talk about as well. But they're asking, do they have the ability to create your own tags within Domotz? So go ahead.
Yeah, very good question. Not in the UI. So at the moment, the only tag that we use is the importance of the device. There is a plan to add multiple tags. So that's why we call, let me share my screen. That's why we call it tags in the UI. So when I go into my inventory tab and I see all the list of devices, now the only tags that is available, it's only the important or no tags at all. So we have plans to add customized tags there. But what is available today, again, goes again in the usage of the API, because as JP probably mentioned multiple times, we have several users that they just use our platform to exchange the data about network data, of course, to their own console. And what we have added into the API is this concept of custom fields. So it's in the inventory tab. So when you go into the inventory, you can define a certain list of fields that you want to attach to every single device. One of these fields can be the custom tag, and then use that field to tag your own devices. It's all available through the API. In the future, we will extend into the UI. A lot of our customers are already using this, as I was mentioning, their own UI in their own portal.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And a lot of this has to do with the ability to be able to search across multiple devices. And Giancarlo, as we're continuing to look at how we do dynamic tables, right? And in the future, we're going to be able to add things like widgets, right, to these tables and graphs. I think being able to filter and look at systems based off of tags is a very good way to do that. And you and I have talked a lot about that. So it's definitely at the forefront of our mind. While it's not there yet, we you're starting to see some of the implementations to help us get there.
Okay.
We are at our hour, Giancarlo. So I'm sure Michael at the very beginning didn't appreciate my banter about ChatGPT, but you know, we're here now. I appreciate everybody joining us. I appreciate all the great questions. We had a lot of really, really good questions. As always, reach out to support@domotz.com if you have technical questions. As I mentioned, if there are feature requests or things that you have systems that you want to see us developing drivers for, or if there are specific scripts that you think would be valuable. We have a team that's helping us write scripts to push those things out, which is helping us grow that community. We want to hear from you. We want to know what those are. And of course, if you have any sales related questions or you need onboarding support, if you need to have a specific demo, we're there to help you. Feel free to reach out to sales@domotz.com, and we will definitely do our best to make sure that your systems are deployed in an effective way and you're getting the best use out of Domotz that you possibly can. Anything else you wanted to mention, Giancarlo?
Very well said, JP. No, I want to appreciate the time that everybody has spent with us today. Looking forward for another town hall in 3 months, but there will be other webinars that we will definitely do in this next summer period. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And again, thanks a lot, everybody, for your patience with JP's jokes at the beginning, but also with with myself presenting. And whenever there is an online demo, there is always some hiccup here and there. So
it was great. It was great. It's all good. So, all right, everybody. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.